Hello, in this video I would like to share some guidance for planning live lessons. Best idea I can give is to keep your lesson planning as simple as possible. To do this, you could make the lesson about one idea only. If you can't manage one idea, keep it to as few learning intentions as possible. Please also remember that the lesson does not need to last the whole hour. You may want to grant yourself 5 minutes to ensure all of the resources are to hand in Teams to make any transitions as smooth as possible. If the students only receive 40 minutes of a lesson and it's high quality, they're going to receive more benefit. So don't feel as though you have to fill the whole hour. A key part of planning for live lessons is that we focus on the clarity of the instruction. We need to realise that the visual clues you would be used to in a classroom, students engaging, asking questions, those little signs a teacher would read, are not going to be available to you. So the clarity of your explanations are going to be doubly important. The clarity of your explanations will in part come from what you display on your computer screen. So it's very important that we take our time designing this and make sure that we're revealing the information gradually so the students can follow the conversation and the idea as we talk them through it. This in turn will also come from the structure of your lesson. Lessons are best when they start from what students already know, their prior knowledge, and in live lessons it's possibly best to start by stating what you think that prior knowledge would be. In a normal lesson, we could have a conversation, ask many questions to remind students of what we think they should know. That's much more difficult in a live lesson situation, so it's probably best by stating what you think that is as a way of ensuring the students have all got a common start point. Then say where the explanation is going to head, then explain your idea. Provide some opportunity for the students to discuss the idea and ask you questions before allowing them to do some practice during that lesson. At the end of the lesson, make sure that you have a clear and succinct summary of the big ideas that have been studied. In order to keep our planning as simple as possible, it's important to focus our planning more on our explanations and how you want to interact with your students rather than the task that the students will complete. During this time, I would recommend using resources that you already have in terms of the activity part of the lesson, the practice part of the lesson, but the bit I would spend time planning would be how I explain things and how I got the students to tell me what they were learning. High quality explanations are going to be central to successful live lessons. So on the screen are a list of ideas that will help us provide a good explanation for our students. Now I just want you to contrast with what this screen looks like and feels like as you're probably trying to read this through as I talk, compared to the previous slides. Now I think you're probably going to get the feeling that there's too much information on there. So one thing that we need to do when we're putting information on the screen is to make sure we've selected that to make it as clear as possible. So not everything on here is 100% relevant to good explanations during live lessons. So I filtered those ideas down so there's fewer of them and just got the most important ones for us during live lessons. So this makes sure that the information is a lot clearer. Now, good explanations always begin by saying what they are about to explain. So the students have got that direction before you begin. We then need to make sure that our points are clear and distinct. So that could be making sure that we use statements rather than saying, oh, we kind of need to make distinct points, or this is what I'm really kind of trying to tell you. We need to make sure that we make clear, distinct points. So that would be within our enunciation, and it would be within the pauses that we make. Pauses are another good way of emphasizing anything that is important during our talks. and we must try to review or summarise key ideas as regularly as we possibly can. You know, we need to remember that our students are not in the room with us. We can't read any of those signs, so we've got to head backwards once in a while just to make sure that they're following the building of our explanation. So far we've said good explanations need to be set out where we're headed first, make clear, distinct points, and put emphasis onto those big ideas of the lesson. At regular intervals, try to remind the students of their prior knowledge and experiences within the classroom. So last week we did this when we were all in school together. We did this experiment. You completed this test on, and I wanted to go back over. So just remind them that they've got a grounding in what you're trying to explain there. Spend some time linking those ideas together and make sure that the links are clear too. And signalling or pointing or highlighting key ideas is really important, so the students get that emphasis. You will have noticed that I've switched tool. The tool I'm using is in PowerPoint, and it's at the bottom of the screen. So if I hover over, we get a whole range of different tools available to us. So I can pick a laser pen to point and highlight things on the screen, or I could pick a pen or a highlighter just to place that emphasis onto the things as we go through. Not only are the words that you speak important, the images that you choose to use with your students during your explanations will benefit from being as simple and as clear as possible. So let's contrast two pictures. So this is something I might use when I'm teaching something on forces, but I know if I pick this picture, the students are going to be obsessing about how groovy that little car is. Is it the Stig, or is it Richard the hamster Hammond driving it? I personally can't take my eyes off that traffic cone. I find this quite a distracting picture to be teaching from, so I wouldn't choose. I would choose something much more like this, a much simpler diagram with less distractions for the students. So this would allow me to more clearly explain the forces acting upon that particular object. When we come to choose what to teach, I think we need to consider the strengths of the technology. So for me, Teams and the technology around Teams allows us to do two things better than we possibly could through pre-recorded lessons. So one of those is by demonstrating to students how we do something, thinking through our ideas as we do that, modelling how we would want the students to exactly carry out a process. Doing a calculation, doing a drawing, drawing a graph, structuring a paragraph. The second thing that the technology allows us to do better than a pre-recorded lesson is to have some discussion and some interaction with our students. We can ask them questions, they can ask us questions, and we can get some information back about what they understand so far. So, an important part of our planning will be choosing the right material to allow us to either model it or have a conversation with our students about. So, modelling, it could be picking out a good example and showing why it's a good example. It could be taking a bit of student work and analysing it and finding out what improvements it could make. So you could have done a little bit of writing in the previous session. You've picked a couple of examples out, and as a class you want to discuss their strengths and weaknesses and how to go about improving them. Or it could be a how-to guide and show the students how you want them to either calculate something, or how to structure a paragraph, or how to sequence some particular ideas. It's really important during that modelling is that we reveal the thinking that's going on in our head at that time. And the great benefits of doing these during live lessons is, as the students are practicing, you can continue to provide that guidance which wouldn't be available if you had pre-recorded the lesson. When you come to discussion tasks, this is something that I think the technology is really going to help us provide over the next 6 weeks or so. It also has the great benefit of providing a lot of information for you as a teacher about how the students are getting on. So in that lesson you could go about re-explaining an idea that you feel as though they haven't got, or you could get information back about and use that for planning any subsequent lessons that you have with that class. To do this, I think we need to plan the questions you want students to discuss, so to make sure that you're talking about the right things to get the right information. And I would always seek to get as many responses as possible from your students. Because you're going to be doing a little bit of cold calling there on the students, it's really important to provide the students with just a little bit of think time so they could write down their answer to the question that you've asked them before you get them to share what they've done. A really important part of this could be just asking some hinge questions as you go through the lesson. So they could be, spaced out through the lesson, where every so often you stop and have a discussion around a key idea. So all a hinge question is a question that's going to reveal what the students are thinking. I'm suggesting that multiple choice questions will work best with these, and if you have 5 options, it reduces the opportunity for students to guess the correct answer. As part of their design, they work best if you've got either a misconception or a red herring that you feel students will always fall into saying, so that you are getting information about what they truly think. All students need to respond to this, so perhaps using a form, which I'll explain in a little second, will allow you to do that. I would always follow up any hinge question with asking students what they personally said and why they said it, or what they thought what the right answer was, before I revealed the right answer. So here's an example I would use in science. So the correct answer is here, and the misconception, I've picked this as a misconception because the students always confuse distance time graphs with velocity time graphs, and that would be the right answer if it was a velocity time graph. So that's the misconception built in. I mentioned forms a little while ago. It's going to take longer to explain than to actually do. So you can do this during your live lesson. If you go to the post sections of that class team, and if you just type in @form into the new conversation box, a box will appear above that, which will say, what can I do? If you click on that, it gives you the option of creating a new poll. You can simply type the question into that new poll and then put your answers for the students to then click and then answer. Another way of doing this would simply be using the raise hand function in Microsoft Teams. So all you would need to say is raise your hand if you think the red was the right answer, the blue was the right answer. Just make sure you ask the students to put their hands down when they're finished. To find the raised hand function, it's under the 3 dot. If you tap that in the recording screen of the Teams meeting, you see the raise hand function. An alternative, if you use things like Kahoot in your normal lessons, you can continue to do that during live lessons through Teams. You just need to use the open share tray. So that's the square with the arrow going into it. This is where you would share your PowerPoints from anyway, so it should be fairly easy to find, but you'll have the ability to share your whole desktop with your students. So if you use Kahoot and you've got that up on your internet screen, you can click that button, desktop stroke window, and then that will allow you to share whatever is on your screen. Finally, I think we need to make clear to students what we expect them to be doing at any point during the lesson. So I quite like this list of how students can join in during those live lessons, and all you would need to do is on each of your slides that you're sharing, you would use one of the symbols to guide the students to what they should be doing to learn best. So in summary, keep this simple. Try to use as few learning attentions as possible, and think about what type of task you're going to benefit most from doing it in a live rather than pre-recorded lesson. Also keep your lesson structure as simple as possible. During your planning, make sure you focus on the clarity of your explanation, building those ideas and emphasising the important ideas for your students. Make clear what you want your students to do, and you will get much more focused discussions if you pre-plan the questions. In selecting the content to teach, please consider what the purpose of your lesson would be. Is it so you can reveal how to do something and model good work? Or do you need to discuss an idea with the students to ensure that they understand? So is that interaction going to be a key part to your lesson? And then finally, think about what information you can get as a teacher about your student learning so that you can respond to them in either that lesson or subsequent ones. Best of luck with the live lesson, people. Thank you.